Welcome back, fan stands, to the Week 20 finals between Jeskai Control and Casualties Ramp. Jeskai is going to be played by Jonah today. You know the drill. It seeks to delay the opponents until it gets out of Sarkhan and wins. Meanwhile, Casualties Ramp will be played by Matt Dallas today, and they look to just ramp and play a Nissa ahead of schedule or even have a backup of Cura plus Time Vault. Let's get into Game 1. Alright, here in Game 1 we have Jonah on the left and Matt on the right. We've resolved mulligans and Jonah is going first. And I've actually got Eli here on the mic with me.
So it looks like a quick start for ramp. Turn 1 Paradise Druid, so got all the colors online.
This implementation of the Paradise Druid into the decks really not only continues to have more effective ramp, but really lets Casualties splash so many more colors.
Yeah, its presence along with the rainbow lands really makes it so that green, black mana cost is no big issue.
No big issue at all, and we'll have Cura. As we said, Cura is another way for this deck to win, so Jonah recognizing the importance of this card, just getting rid of it right away. Don't want to get Matt available to cast Casualties or Nissa if they don't have an extra land.
However, this is big. It is resolving a Hex Parasite. Now, against decks running Planeswalkers hyper efficient, like Saheeli, Teferi, as you mentioned, potentially Sarkhan, having an instant speed way to remove counters from these Planeswalkers can be a massive thorn in the side.
Mm-hmm. And we actually haven't seen Hex Parasite very much. Maybe it's in the sideboard of some strategies. But to see it actually in the main board of a ramp deck makes a lot of sense. Casualties ramp tends to have a lot of mana and sometimes not enough cards to actually do stuff with it. So being able to not only get rid of all these extra planeswalkers that are in the way, but right now Hex Parasite is actually threatening to remove blue from Jonah, as Hex Parasite removes counters from any permanent, including that gemstone mine.
Yeah, great point. In a format with such a flexible mana base, really being able to take colors away from another player is a very rare instance, but I mean very strong.
Mm-hmm.
With the flexible mana bases that we have, sometimes players can get a little greedy with keeps, or not greedy with keeps, but something like a Hex Parasite can turn a fine keep into something that potentially doesn't function.
Yep. And we see here Jonah leading on another plateau, definitely not going to be able to have more blue, or not representing any extra blue, should Matt Dallas remove the counters from that gemstone mine. Now, looks like we have a Demonic Tutor, a Factor Fiction, and a Time Twister in hand from Matt.
So interesting decision path here. He thinks that Jonah is going to be stuck on blue for a couple more turns, he might try and avoid time twistering, potentially unlocking a new 7.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just going forward with the Factor Fiction and trying to pull ahead. But actually, we do see what we were mentioning earlier about that taking away of blue mana.
Yep. Matt gonna pay 2 life and 2 mana, remove the counters from gemstone mine, and Jonah, up to no tricks, not gonna float anything in response. The fact that Jonah doesn't tap and remove a counter actually does mean that they'll be taking extra damage this turn. Hex Parasite, it doesn't get buffed for as much mana as you put into it, but for only as many counters are removed from it. So this Hex Parasite is currently a 3/1.
Now we do see the Time Twister, so this is going to be a new 7 for both players. Looks like, unless fast mana is drawn by Matt, the first person to use those 7 efficiently will be Jonah, although wheeling the control deck could draw into counter spells, reactive spells, the kind of things that we might still, after the wheel, end up seeing Matt play the first spell.
And these wheels are really great in a deck that seeks to have a lot of mana. Not only would you be able to wheel and maybe play something on the same turn, but if the control player is just going to be holding up a counter spell after the wheel, you're likely going to be able to double spell into that and just get something on board.
Now, we do have to see from the control player some way of answering what is currently in play, because a lot of the control decks, especially in this format, tend to rely on stack manipulation, stack interaction. Notably, the presence of sweepers. There usually do run some point removal, but out of I personally have been beat to death with Paradise Druids and 1/1s, so it for now not a big issue, but it will be something that ultimately does have to end up being dealt with.
The damage does add up, but right now we've got Jonah found access to the blue mana yet again. Only at 3 lanes in play, well, 3 mana available to them. Looking at whether or not they want to deploy Teferi or Saheeli. Saheeli would be able to survive, or not
No.
necessarily, with the Hex Parasite out. It's going to be able to really put a dampener on anything Jonah's looking to do. We do have a Mox in hand, so Saheeli plus Mox would be able to put a blocker in the way of this Hex Parasite if it chooses to attack in, or if they want to keep the Hex Parasite back and instead only attack with the Paradise Druid, would be denying some mana from Matt while continuing to keep the Saheeli out.
We come back to this situation that we sort of spoke on earlier, where proactive plays are in hand and can be cast. However, the presence of Hex Parasite just shuts them down so effectively. Where Saheeli, I mean, play the Mox, just funnel a bunch of mana into the Hex Parasite, and you don't even have to swing with the Hex Parasite. You can just remove. I think Matt is at enough mana where, yeah. Looks like we're gonna see a lightning bolt on the Druid, potentially trying to take off colors of mana for casualties. However, there is double gemstone, so should be able to get at least one casualties out.
Yeah, favoring slowing down Dallas's plan as well as holding up this Dovin's veto. Notably, if the Hex Parasite didn't get rid of that gemstone mine, and here we see veto countering Nissa, so great heads up play, planning ahead by Jonah. But getting rid of that gemstone mine a little bit earlier in the game meant that Jonah couldn't double spell with Saheeli and then be able to hold up Dovin's veto. Now we're here at the game where Parasite's just putting in the beats. And 4 mana available. Wouldn't be able to one-shot a Saheeli. Would need a little bit more from there. So got Saheeli in play. After an interplanar beacon, going to gain a life there. And probably follow it up with the Mox just to get a blocker. And then feign a Dovin's veto, but
we obviously know that Jonah doesn't have that. Something that's kind of crucial is that in order to cast the Nissa, Matt had to tap one of his gemstone mines, and so he does not actually have enough mana on board right now to just straight up kill the Saheeli without combat. So, but there is the land, so that is an option available, although with 6 cards in hand, there's probably a better use for the 5 mana, and in fact, we see a Nissa.
Nissa, who shakes the world, is going to shake the battlefield. Hitting in play, Matt not respecting another counterspell, and Jonah not having one. So Nissa will come into play, animate this Bayou, and we'll have some attacks. Looks like Bayou's getting in. Jonah really thinking whether or not to chump block this or not.
And this will actually provide potentially some insight. This could signal to Matt that Jonah wants to be able to have the option to downtick Saheeli at some point. Potentially, Time Vault shenanigans could happen, and so he might place a little bit of higher priority on ensuring that Saheeli is removed as soon as possible. Whereas if, Jonah didn't make that block, maybe Jonah doesn't care so much about the Saheeli, and Matt, you could take that as a sign that maybe I don't need to apply pressure to Saheeli, but instead to my opponent.
Jonah's got two options available to them. They can cast Teferi and they can cast Saheeli. We're going to go with the Teferi plan, gain a life from the beacon, get a servo from Saheeli. Bouncing Parasite doesn't do too much here, as that one extra mana doesn't do much when there's a Nissa on the battlefield. So we'll just deny some more mana from this ramp deck by bouncing the land back to hand. Keep our planeswalkers a little bit healthy. Ooh, and we're going for the Re-Teferi, really valuing the tempo at this point in the game, trying to get ourselves a little bit stable. Don't want to die to a Casualties, though. Casualties will still be able to be cast at this current state of the board. And Jonah's not even feigning a counterspell. Not that Matt Dallas was respecting one with casting Nissa last turn, but just all out on the board.
Looks like a Tamiyo was the draw for turn, and we do see a Casualties of War in hand for Matt Dallas. So, I mean, the path seems pretty clear. Although, actually, the question is, which Planeswalker do you take out? It's an interesting decision. We'll see what he chooses. I don't think that Teferi matters that much right now. I think you're more concerned about, a Time Vault being ripped off the top, and we see that he does take Saheeli, as well as the Interplanar Beacon, actually. Maybe
stop gaining life.
Yeah, stop gaining life. Once again, the main plan is 3/3 beatdown. So now we will untap the Tropical Island with Nissa, and it's an interesting thought. Do you apply pressure to the Teferi? Next turn you could maybe get the same thing. We'll see. And it looks like it has decided to ignore Teferi, and will now play the Birds of Paradise that was bounced. Oh, actually, yeah, activating the Hex Parasite, paying 2 life, and playing the birds, because the forest does add an additional green on top of its tapping.
Beacon right back in play. We're gonna keep gaining life, but not right now. We're just gonna pass the turn, and looks like Jonah doesn't have too much in hand. A Saheeli and a Factor Fiction. So we'll be seeing piles made up soon, but for now, Matt Dallas will be playing Savannah. Lots of options in hand for them. Tamiyo to rebuy Casualties. We've got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We could do that all in the same go if we really wanted to.
Yeah, this is going to be brutal.
We're going to animate.
Untap the Bayou. Animating it, I imagine, with Nissa.
Sorry that y'all can't really see the Tamiyo, but it's there. She's digging in the graveyard. That's what she's doing right now. But in the meantime, we'll have Nissa uptick and get in for 6 vigilance. You're probably going to want to just keep the servo around because 1, it's threatening the block on Hex Parasite, and 2, it will be able to protect your Saheeli later. But we're going to value some card selection. Matt Dallas casting Factor Fiction. We've got Foff, Underground Sea, Bayou, Mox Pearl, and another Trop.
So at this point in the game, cards really seem to be the big issue. So yeah, that seems like a decent split. I'm unsure in the position on if Matt Dallas would have taken single factor fiction, because it seems like at this point you have all the mana that you would ever need.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of need cards, but ultimately I don't think one land will change the outcome of this match.
I like making sure to not put a forest with the factor fiction. Putting a non-forest land while Nissa's on the battlefield.
That makes sense.
But we've got the Reef off. These lands I'm not as familiar with, but it looks like we have Bayou, a Trop, an Underground Sea, Demonic Tutor, and Regrowth. Demonic and Tutor and Regrowth both... that's
a
Praetor's
Praetor's
Grasp.
Grasp. So...
Yeah.
Regrowth is a good card.
Yeah, Regrowth with Foff Piles is just so insane. There's no real way to...
Win.
Yeah.
And this is a
Third
Foff of Jonah's own.
Mm-hmm. We're going to leave up the ability to maybe opt. No, we're going to leave up the ability to Swords or Bolt.
Now, if Jonah is running wheels, Narset Wheel could be a way to maybe not get fully back into the game, but it's definitely something that I would be wary of as Matt Dallas. I think you might have lethal on, or no, this is still Matt's turn. So I would be weary about giving Narset, but it looks like Jonah wants the Supreme Will and the Bolt.
And we're going to Bolt a land. Still keeping this Hex Parasite around. That's been a problem the whole game, but I mean, you still need to stop the land beats. And that's another great thing about Foff in this ramp control deck, or this Golgari ramp deck, is that even the cards or the lands that would just seem so free to give in excess, each of them represents a 3/3 later in the game.
Yeah.
We've just got a Saheeli from Jonah's side, holding up that Supreme Will. Unlikely to actually catch any spells from Matt, just because of the sheer amount of mana available to them. But at least makes Matt have to think.
So it looks like we're regrowthing Time Twister. Wonder what Matt could be digging for.
I mean, at this stage in the game, getting a Time Walk would just be lights out.
Yes,
You've
course.
got Time Walk, you've got Tamio, even though she's hiding behind the Mox Emerald, she'd be able to regrowth. Or
cast
do we not?
another Tamio?
Or maybe there wasn't a Tamio there. Whatever the case, Tamio will be countered.
The Supreme Will actually managing to catch a spell.
Yeah.
Even through all of the mana. It's making sure that you resolve the things that you want to resolve in the correct order, which I think that probably was the correct order, because as you said, Time Twistering into Time Walk is just so brutal in this scenario that you just want to give yourself as many looks for Time Walk as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then
here we go. We've got Time Twister. Looks like we're doing this before combat. Not getting any damage in, but we'll be able to use that one floating mana we have left over, maybe to get the ball rolling. Maybe some Dark Rituals and do something with that.
something that we do need to keep an eye out on is the Time Twister that Matt Dallas cast should be in the graveyard, I believe. And I think he might have just shuffled it into his deck.
Yeah, I'm sure that if they see it again, they'll just replace the draw.
Yeah.
Not too big of a deal. But for the third time, we're going to have both players look at 7 cards in their hand.
Welcome to Season 9, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Wheels and deals.
Wheels and deals. This is ABU in its purest form. Obviously, when you incorporate, Power 9 cards into any format, they are going to have a strong shaping, and we do see the, fast mana
Mm-hmm.
that this, and here, oh, mental misstep though.
Ooh.
Plenty of non-ABU cards also making their mark.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I imagine they've caught on to the fact that Time Twister should be in the deck, and they've asked probably a judge to grab it,
Mm-hmm.
which is, of course, the appropriate thing to do. Like you said, not a huge deal, but. And then I believe that should be everything, because he's played his I guess he does have one more mana available, so could do Dark Ritual things.
Mm-hmm. Or if they've got a Time Walk available, could Time Walk now.
Believe he only. Wait, why should that land? Why did that untap?
Looks like there's just some discussion with the judge, making sure everything was played well. Not sure how we got here, but this is where we are. Jonah playing Mox Sapphire, gonna get a trigger from Sealy, new servo token available. We've got a
Supreme Will looking to dig a couple cards down.
Veto, not too great in this position. Teferi buys you time, but Lightning Bolt actually gets the job done. You want to be able to prevent Nissa from ultimating. So you could strike the Trop, attack all into Nissa, get her down. But then you're
taking a lot on the crackback. Taking not quite lethal on the crackback.
You definitely have to make sure that you have a blocker for that Hex Parasite.
Yes. Because unlike with the Gemstone Mine at the beginning of the game, you do not have any way to remove counters from Saheeli at instant speed.
Mm-hmm. If you really wanted to, you could eat Nissa. You could eat your own Gemstone Mines.
Oh yeah, actually, I've never seen anyone do that before, but that is definitely something to be aware of. Because, maybe...
never seen someone eat Nissa?
Nope, never seen it. That is something to keep in mind, is like, Nissa's ultimate, while it's good, it gets all the forests out of your deck, it makes the rest of your draw steps fantastic. Nothing's better in a game of Magic than just straight up killing your opponent, and so...
Oh god, this FOF pile
my
is
god.
Crazy.
Oh. Okay, so let's see here. Probably...
We've got Regrowth in the mix.
Has Nissa already been activated this turn?
Nope.
Okay, so then you really don't want to give... I mean... Huh.
Yeah, and it looks like we're favoring the selection. Maybe we want to spin the wheel yet again. Have another Time Twister in the mix.
Yeah.
Time Twister is a fun card.
That it is. I mean, something that is also to keep in mind is we could get a scenario where if Matt Dallas had taken the Nissa pile... actually looks like he might be grabbing Factor Fiction. Just reconsidering. There is the chance.
Yeah, we go again.
We go again.
Spin the slot machine.
If he did take the Nissa pile or Regrowth for Nissa, we could end up seeing a scenario where you uptick Nissa, animate a land, and then cast another Nissa just to get another creature, ending the game sooner.
Mm.
Or something like Ultimate Nissa and then cast the other and uptick. Nissa is such an incredibly powerful planeswalker, but probably less powerful than 7 new cards, which could be Nissa plus other things.
Mm-hmm. I think Nissa should be at 10 loyalty, and we should have the Savannah as a creature land. But sure, this will all get shaken up and resolved in time.
Lots of drastic game state changes in this game. Shuffling almost as much as with fetch lands.
Yeah. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
It looks like on Jonah's side, we've got 2 more planeswalkers, a little bit of fast mana, another bolt.
And overload.
Ooh, and overload. That can answer
Finally deal the Hex Parasite.
Yeah, the Hex Parasite. But we do see an ultimated Nissa. And a lightning bolt in response to kill it. Or no, killing the land.
We're going to float some mana, I guess.
Another servo is added, and you know, we're getting to the point where Matt Dallas is at 13 life, and there are 7 servos on the board. Obviously, all the lands coming out of all the forests coming out of Matt Dallas's deck, but he has to be a little careful to not get swarmed by these servos.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, the servos being artifact creatures, Jonah can't get too aggressive because Casualties of War can kill 2 servos, one being the destroy target creature, another being destroy target artifact. But there are, you know, signs of both players drew a new setup. This is by no means over.
Mm-hmm. We've got overload on the Hex Parasite. Using both of our removal spells, getting the job done. No extra servo, but maybe we don't need it. Alright. Oh, we've
Time
got
Vault.
Time Vault out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's what I was mentioning. I mean, obviously it's been multiple wheels, but showing the extra turns and yeah, what I mentioned earlier.
Representing 4 extra turns here, the servos are going to get it done. Wow. And Jonah, it's taking game 1.
Through a Nissa ultimate, through Casualties of War. I mean, that was certainly impressive. And on to game 2.
All right, you're joining us back in game 2 from Jonah playing Jeskai against Matt playing Casualties Ramp. Matt's going to take the play this time and lead off with turn 1 Birds of Paradise, but Jonah will respond with a turn 1 play of their own. Gemstone Mine's going to tap for I don't quite remember the name of this card, but it enchants a green permanent, and they have to pay 4 in their upkeep or sacrifice it. Or no, they have to pay for its mana cost, I believe. And it looks like we're figuring out the timing of everything.
So, asking Matt to...
So yeah, in the upkeep, Matt's going to use Birds of Paradise to pay for itself, which makes a lot of sense. Maybe you'd be like, well, why do I need to keep my creature around? Matt's playing Casualties of War, and often these Jeskai control decks don't have any enchantments that they are playing out to the board. So if Matt can Casualties and essentially save an extra creature, but it looks like Matt's not going to bother with that anymore.
Right, because he cast Time Walk, which tapped him out, and it... unless the birds was not supposed to untap. Once again, I'm not too familiar with the card itself. Oh, wow. Had plenty of birds. The entire flock, so to speak.
The fleet are flocking. And looks like Jonah sitting on Trips of Reb in hand. That's in there from the sideboard. Though Matt kind of on the Monogatari plan. We've got a mental misstep for our Dark Ritual. Gonna slow Matt down yet again. They didn't end up playing an extra land the other turn. So got here, and we'll just pass the turn. Jonah also a little light on lands. Gonna play Mox Jet, but
deciding against it.
Rather wanting to hold it in for Saheeli. Alright, finding another land. In Gemstone Mine, we're going to tap 1, 2, 3,
Oop, not up to 6.
4,
Yeah.
5, and Jonah is conceding. Okay.
Oh, we can see it up top there.
Looks like Matt was casting Nissa, and Jonah, handful of Rebs isn't going to be able to stop that, and a quick game 2.
Very different from our game 1 with, 3 or 4 wheels.
On to game 3. Alright, game 3. This time, Jonah will be on the play on our left. Looks like we've got mulligan down to 5. So things aren't looking the best.
However, in a format with, wheels and twisters, mulliganing it's not as much of a death sentence, so to speak, as in some other formats. Mm-hmm. Although, with...
mulliganing to 4.
4.
And looks like we're getting rid of 3 lands. Keeping the Gemstone Mine because we favor being able to tap for colored mana.
Time Walk, okay. So that's a redraw.
And no more mana.
Ooh, we can see a Narset in hand, which off of a blue land, that could have been a pretty nice way to get some of those cards back.
We've got Ritual Mind Twist, so Jonah playing with no resources.
Probably the best draw in the deck is... Because at this point, you just want to hit lands so that you can cast spells, because spells that you can't cast end up getting eaten by potentially other copies of Mind Twist.
We're deciding to not play our land until now.
Didn't get punished for it.
Kira's out here, but she's gone. Jonah's really going to want to get a fact or fiction, and right on time, right on cue.
Right on cue.
We've got that enchantment removal spell. We've got Supreme Will, Saheeli, and Overload. Saheeli is the only one that's really having any action in this hand. So you'll probably want to separate the Supreme Will and the Saheeli as one treads water.
Yeah, I would... The card that would stand out the most to me is the Supreme Will, because if I'm Matt Dallas, most of these cards I think I can handle decently. The real problem is potentially having Supreme Will dig into something that, Matt Dallas doesn't get the choice on where to put it. It just goes straight to hand. But it looks like Jonah did take the counterspell / card selection, and another Mind Twist. Wow, that is brutal.
We'll get rid of your cards again. Man, Fact or Fiction put 5 cards in the graveyard?
I know. Split 5-0 and chose the O.
Yeah.
That is... I missed the draw step.
We got Kira.
Looks like it was just
untap. Going to be able to play our Birds of Paradise now.
Yeah. Looks like it was just an Interplanar Beacon. Probably trying to represent holding up a counterspell, which Jonah now has.
Mox Jet tapping 5 mana. Here's Nissa.
And a veto. Nice. So, game's definitely not over. Think about how this game started. Mulligan to 4, double Mind Twist. This is definitely still anyone's game.
5 mana for Nissa yet again.
Another Nissa, and this time the counter check fails.
So she's here. This will be a 4-turn clock. Kira will untap a forest. We've got 5 mana available to us.
Looks like double Fact or Fiction in hand for Matt Dallas. So
Casualties, Bayou, Gemstone, Kiora. Yeah, and these cards don't really mean too much. Casualties, yeah, it can take off of 2 mana resources, but at this point, Jonah's just looking for action, and
Yeah, looks like a
just gonna
concession.
yeah take it out. And Matt Dallas, first time back in the saddle, first win. Congratulations.